Hello and welcome again if you watched my video before, and welcome if you haven't, of course. So in this video I thought we'd have a look at the relationships between mountains and ancient sites, and then after that a relationship between ancient sites. So first, mountains to ancient sites. Up here we have Mont Blanc, the highest mountain in Western Europe, and it has a distance to exactly the Giza Plateau and the Great Pyramid. Think of this distance as 1 nautical mile. And then we head over to Mount Everest here, which has two distances here to two very prominent ancient sites in Asia. So Mount Everest has a distance to exactly Angkor Wat and the temple there, which is as 1 mile compared to the one between Mont Blanc and Giza, which was as 1 nautical mile. But this Mount Everest also has a distance exactly to the Ellora caves, the famous Ellora caves with the rock-cut Kailasa temple there. And this distance compared to the previous two is exactly as 1 kilometer. So 1 mile here, 1 kilometer here, and then we had 1 nautical mile in the first distance here between Mont Blanc and Giza. And after I've measured those, I'll show you that there is a connection between Angkor Wat, the Ellora caves, and Temple Mount in Jerusalem, as measured from Angkor Wat to both of these. So I'll just take those two away for now and start by showing you the distance Mont Blanc to Giza and the Great Pyramid. And we'll measure this one in nautical miles. And here is then the very peak of Mont Blanc, just in a second or two, right there. And we'll measure from here then to Giza and the Great Pyramid. And the distance we get here in nautical miles is just around, and here we have the Great Pyramid, 1,483.6 nautical miles. You can see it right here in the middle row, 1483.6. Let's shift to miles and measure now from Mount Everest to Angkor Wat Temple in Cambodia. And the very peak of Mount Everest is here in just a second, after it is cleared up. Just give it. So, okay, we can say right here is the very peak of Mount Everest and to Angkor Wat. And here we find 1,483.6 again, but in miles now. You can see in the middle row here again, 1,483.6 miles, just within the temple here, precisely. Exactly the same numbers, but in miles here. So those two distances then are related by the ratio between the mile and the kilometer. And now if we prolong this distance a little bit, when we come to the farthest end here, edge, if you will, of the island, where we find the temple, this perfectly rectangular one, we find a distance of 1,483.95 miles. We are within the central island. And if we now go back to Mount Everest peak and measure to the Kailasa temple in the Ellora caves in kilometers, we'll find 1,483.95 kilometers. So let's check that, if that's correct. Here we have the peak then, and off to the Ellora caves from Mount Everest. And right here is the Ellora caves. They stretch north to south. Northern caves are here, and here we have then the famous Kailasa temple, right here. If we look in the top row here, the map length distance, we have exactly that 1,483.95 kilometers here. Exactly the same numbers we had in miles to the island of Angkor Wat, the farthest end of it, if you will. So there we have it, that from Mount Everest, we have 1 kilometer to Kailasa temple and 1 mile to Angkor Wat. And previously then we had the nautical mile here connecting with Angkor Wat's distance to Mount Everest being 1 mile. So that cannot be a coincidence in my opinion, but of course it's very exact, and these are really big ancient sites and big mountains. So there we had those distances. Let me take those away and now look at the connection between AngKor Wat and the Ellora caves, and the particular distance that is connected to AngKor Wat's distance to Temple Mount in Jerusalem. The first distance then we'll measure is from the Temple of AngKor Wat to the northern Ellora caves. Here is the temple, and we measure sort of from its center there to Ellora. And the Ellora caves, as I said previously, stretch. Here is the northernmost caves, and they stretch like this. And we're measuring the northern caves now. And we have a distance here. If you look in the top row there, a pi distance actually. Pi times 1,000 in kilometers. 3,141.6. And pi is 3.1416. I think that's plays a part here. But the unit value we look at here is the mile variant. Because there we have 1952.1. 1952.1. If we exactly double that, we get 3904.2. Just a doubling. All we have to do now to find that distance from AngKor Wat to Temple Mount, 3904.2, is to shift from miles to nautical miles. We just take the line here and extend it to Temple Mount here. And there we find 3904.2 nautical miles. I just have to zoom out a little bit to pick up the line here. And here is Temple Mount. So this is a line, the distance here. And just when we reach Temple Mount, we have 3904.2 nautical miles. Exactly double the numbers we had in miles to the northern Ellora caves from the AngKor Wat temple. So the ratio between those two distances, as measured from AngKor Wat to the Ellora caves, we have 1 mile, and to Temple Mount we have 2 nautical miles. That's the ratio here, 1 mile, and then here 2 nautical miles. That's just the connection between ancient sites also, where a unit of measurement ratio orders the distances. And as I always show in my videos, if you have watched them now or maybe in the future, all of the distances that I show, the order that orders distances are the units of measurement ratios. Some of these, or one or many of these ratios, orders distances between very important locations. And here we looked at mountains to ancient sites, ordered by unit of measurement ratios, and then also distances between ancient sites now, ordered by unit of measurement ratio. So that's what I wanted to show in this little video. And if you watched this far, thank you very much for doing so.